You know, Michael Steele, obviously, I spent time in the communications side in my time in politics. And what the committee has, just in the evidence we've seen, and Congressman Kinzinger says there that there's a lot that you don't know, is damn right I called the code red on every page. On every page. You've got Kevin McCarthy. Damn right I thought laws had been broken. Damn right I thought my members could get other members killed. You've got Donald Trump. Damn right I wanted to use the U.S. Pentagon, the State Department, and DHS to seize voting machines. And what the committee has an opportunity to do is say, not Adam Schiff this time, not even Robert Mueller, who worked for Republicans after 9/11, and all of you. I think Robert Mueller was in front of Congress more times than any other government official ever, in light of the fact they led the FBI. But it didn't matter. They turned him into someone like you and me, Michael Steele, someone who goes on MSNBC and tells the truth about what the Republican Party has become. All of their witnesses are inside the Trump tent. The opportunity they have is to just recede and let Trump's people explain what they did.
I absolutely agree, and I loved the idea of an HBO miniseries starring the January 6th congressional. Absolutely, that's what you want to do. I mean, look, since Republicans, think Democrats have all these nexus and connections to Hollywood, get some Hollywood writers to write some of this script out if need be. You've got to tell this story in a way that captures the attention, the imagination, the energy of the country. Take us into the summer, baby. I'm at the beach with a nice cold drink with my feet up, listening and watching what is going on with these hearings. That's where they need this thing to go to. Look, you don't have any runway left here. There is nothing left to do at this point except sell, sell, sell. We are fixated on what, Elon Musk is doing on Twitter. We are fixated on whether Donald Trump will get back on Twitter. Baby, you need to eclipse that level of attention-grabbing nonsense to something that's substantive and real for the country. So they need to bring not just an A game, they need to redefine what the A game is with this, because the only thing at stake here is democracy itself. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not trying to, scream and shout something that ain't true. Everybody knows it. In my hearing, outside of my hearing, knows it. Because come November 4th, you get this part of the movie, of the miniseries, wrong, the rest of the movie, baby, you don't want to watch.
Basil, I never pick on you because I pick on the Democrats. It's not my point, but they're all that we've got in this experiment in democracy. So I'm coming back to you as a vessel, not a target of my exasperation. But Democrats believe that there's a hard wiring and that they can only talk about one thing. And I would just posit that you walk around New York or frankly, all across the Midwest, there are churches and schools with jars outside for Ukraine. And what people understand about Ukraine is two things. One, they're the democracy being attacked by a brutal autocratic leader, Vladimir Putin. And two, 8 weeks ago, their lives were a lot like our lives. Americans care about democracy if they can be made to understand what happens if you lose it. And I wonder, I saw you nodding when Michael Steele was talking. What is your advice?
Well, I think everything that's been said about getting that narrative right is incredibly important, because we need to get people to buy into what's happening here and the consequences is if this is allowed to occur and metastasize into something larger that we probably can't even comprehend at this moment. But in addition to the narrative, one thing that really is important for me, and I think for so many people, is the notion of accountability. Okay, so let's say that we find that all of these folks who we're bringing to the table, who we're bringing in front of us to testify, we find that they did do something wrong. What then? The one challenge that I think we had with the impeachment hearings and the Russia probe is that there was this sense that, well, Trump's not going to get punished, that a lot of the other folks who were involved may not get punished in the way that we think that they should be. And there's this sense that a lot of people who should be in jail, who should be punished in other ways, are not going to get punished. And that, I think, is the important part of extending the narrative. Yes, this is must-see TV, but at the end of the day, there are people who are going to go to jail as a result of this, and we need to be able to talk that up a lot more as well. And the fear that I have is that if we don't do that, if there isn't accountability at the end of this narrative, then the Democrats won't have anything after the January 6th hearings to be able to go after. And then we're in a world of trouble at that point, because that suggests to me and to probably so many others that the Republicans are going to be able to get away with anything. And at that point, how do we stop that?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, what's interesting, AB, is if you step back, Donald Trump waged a war against the rule of law, against Jim Comey personally, Andrew McCabe personally, Pete Strzok personally, Rod Rosenstein personally, Jeff Sessions he made cry. Bill Barr, you know, writes about being screamed at, but that's a little more of the tarantulas in a bowl, if you ask me. And the people who no longer believe in the rule of law aren't the Republicans, it's the Democrats.
But the Democrats believe in the rule of law. I'm not.
But they don't believe it. I mean, Democrats don't believe that it applies evenly. I mean, the lack of sort of thinking that these are potent political issues is because Democrats think that if Robert Mueller wrote a volume this big, the second half, they were 6 criminal acts that Donald Trump had engaged in, and there were no consequences for him. The extortion of President Zelensky was a clear abuse of power. They saw the Republicans just shrug their shoulders and say, I don't think so. And then they saw Republicans participate in condemning Donald Trump, and he wasn't convicted for that. So what the Republican war on the rule of law did to the country was make Democrats think it's not a salient issue to talk about. I mean, Basil's been talking for 40 minutes about a criminal conspiracy. And I bet if you took that to Democratic campaign operatives, they could argue it either way. Maybe, maybe not. People don't really believe that Republicans are held accountable to the same rule of law that we are. The people who no longer believe that the rule of law applies evenly over every American, no matter their affiliation, no matter their standing, no matter their sort of party, no matter their proximity to power, are by and large Democrats and independents, not Republicans.
It is unfortunate that Democrats are, I think, afraid of this subject because they think it doesn't poll well and that Americans actually don't care about the threats to democracy and the erosion of the rule of law by the right the last 6 years. Yes, they also know that voters are burnt out on the fact that people who melt the rule of law and our institutions face no accountability. And someone like Donald Trump has gotten away with everything. This is part of the reason I wrote that piece. Look at what the Republicans have gotten away with. Don't you think it's important that we discuss this before they take control of the Congress? It's really it's tough for Democrats to face this, but they don't really have a choice. I'm a little more optimistic, I think, than everyone else about the January 6th hearing. I do believe they've learned from what happened. They know that Democrats as a party did not respond. The fact that Bill Barr destroyed the Mueller report's the idea of it being amplified and digested by the American public by lying about it and not releasing it until 3 weeks after he lied about it.
Yeah.
And the Democrats did not fight back about that. I think they've learned and they have been burned. And I do believe that, as Betsy describes, they are preparing to try to make this compelling so that if you don't sit down to watch the hearings, you still end up learning about it. This stuff will be shared. It will be talked about. It will be debated. And I think parts of it will go quite viral and it will break through. That's something that I do believe Democrats learned from the impeachments and from the Mueller investigation.
Let me just associate myself with your optimism. I think so too, and really, it's sort of our last best hope. I like Michael Steele's idea. Ticket to HBO. Betsy Woodruff Swan, Michael Steele, A.B. Stoddard, Basil Michael, the best of the best.